It's June 23rd, 1985, and a scheduled international flight, Air India Flight 182, is en route from Toronto to London. But before reaching that stop in London, the flight, and everyone on board, would meet their demise just off the coast of Ireland.
India 1827. India 1827. We're looking for the Air India. He should be just ahead of you at flight level 310. No, we've been looking and I've been calling on guard and he hasn't answered it. We don't see him.
We saw a large rectangular object, appeared to be of a pyramid shape, floating in the water over there. Look at it, understand there's sharks in the air.
This bombing would be marked as one of the worst and deadliest terrorist attacks in Canadian history, killing all 329 people aboard, 268 of whom were Canadian citizens. 2 days prior to this tragedy, on June 21st, 1985, and a little before 8 p.m., an 18-wheeler with a loaded hull lost its brakes and came rushing down Highway 59 in the small town of Van Burden, Arkansas. An explosive crash from the truck would follow, resulting in 9 people dying, with some of the victims being small children. On this same day, roughly 1,202 miles away, in a small community known as Prince Frederick of the state of Maryland, another tragedy developed. Not in the form of death, however, but in the form of life, since on this very same day, John Kenneth Baione Jr., otherwise known as the Maryland Grim Reaper, would be born.
Paranoid, and don't act all funny and change your energy up when you see me one day. There's nobody here to fake for. There's nobody here to stunt for. It's just me and you, bitch ass nigga. That way when you get beat on, you can't call the police on me. Once you sign a paper, then you can bring one of your little girlfriends or one of your little niggas with you because you won't have to have somebody like this to carry you up out of there.
You know, I'm far from perfect. Far from perfect. I always wanted to be a cop like my dad so I could protect people and help people. That's what I always wanted to be.
Okay, to be fair, I am being a bit dramatic, but in my opinion, out of all the very interesting online personalities I've covered, granted, not many, John is a very unique case of what not to do when it comes to someone dealing with online hate/scrutiny. Most reasonable people either don't address it, or if they do, it's once and they move on. Even for people who do engage with it on a regular basis, come with excuses, continuously apologize, or farm the hate to benefit themselves. This, however, gets completely flipped on its head in John Baione's case, yet it is what makes him stand out from the rest. For my entire time on the internet, I have never seen anyone come close to the amount of animosity and hostility John Baione has directed at his very own viewers. Now, there's a lot to unravel here, like who is John Baione? How and why did he get this nickname, the Maryland Grim Reaper? And most importantly, can someone like John Baione truly ever change his nature for the better, or will he forever be stuck yielding to his own wrathful ways? Before getting into who John Baione is and why you may or may not have heard of him, a little information about his upbringing is in order. Keyword little, since I couldn't find too much about his childhood, just bits and pieces. But without further ado, let's go all the way back. Whoa, 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 whoa. No, we went way too far back. Like, for fuck's sake, we're in this man's dad's ball sack. Go a bit further. No, no, that's not what I meant. You know what? Just give it to me. John Kenneth Baione Jr. was born on June 21st, 1985, to parents John Dennis Baione and Deborah Marie Baione. Recalling my earlier statements of him being born in Prince Frederick, Maryland, I must admit I have no real way to confirm this, since there isn't any information publicly, that I could find at least, or videos that I am aware of where it states his birthplace. But considering most of the research I've done and will bring up in this video, it seems he has spent most of his entire life, if not at least his childhood, in Maryland, particularly in Calvert County. As you will see throughout this video, all the towns and communities I mentioned will all take place in this county, and Prince Frederick being the community mentioned the most. John Baione Jr. seems to have 4 siblings, with him being the eldest. This is based on how typically obituaries order children's names, and it's not required to be ordered this way, but it is traditionally done this way. I also dug up some of John White pages and found said siblings info that provided some ages. Obviously, I'm not going to show you any of the siblings' names or where this info was obtained. To limit any harassment I possibly can, going into this, there was already some hesitation in showing the parents' full names, but I figured that the dad would be kind of crucial to explain John Bayone's background and show how ironic what John would become in the future truly is. But I am getting sidetracked. At first, the validity of these ages seem ambiguous, but after looking at John's pages, the information matches more or less with the research I've done. And going off these ages, this does prove John is the eldest sibling. Now, the nature of John Bayone's childhood is pretty much a mystery, as John has rarely spoken publicly about it. He did, however, recount a story when he was a child about his own father busting through his door to confront him. After being told by the cops his son was found abusing animals, John, worried, thinking he was going to be sent to juvie, was quickly relieved when his father told him jokingly the cops were arresting him for beating his genitalia too often, or as his father phrased it, whipping his lizard. Coming after the fact, his confession to strapping a cat down on a chair and spinning it around a bunch. For those of you wondering, did he really do that? He clarifies that this was a true story, not only once, but twice. Now, in John's defense, he was a child at the time. He does go on multiple times on the record, recognizing how problematic he was as a minor and for a big portion of his life as an adult. I think it's still safe to assume though, John had a decent upbringing, with his page as proof, showing dozens of positive moments captured with him and his family, and even saying how grateful he is for having such a strong bond with his own father. According to John Bayone's Facebook page, he attended Calvert High School, located in, once again, Prince Frederick, and Northern High School, based in Owings, Maryland. With a distance of 13.7 miles between the two communities, it isn't too unreasonable to assume he's telling the truth here. Plus, doing my research, I found deed records, titles, and even ownership history under a real estate listing of his own father, John Dennis Baione, dating all the way back from 1991 to 2005 in Owings, Maryland. This makes John Baione Jr. around the ages of 6 to 20 during his time living there. It was also during this time period John's parents would go through a divorce, it being finalized on the 10th of December 2001. And unfortunately for John, his life would only continue to spiral from here on out, as he'd be endlessly catching case after case after case. Based on John's own statements, it seems like he'd be getting into criminal trouble since a teenager. However, his first time actually being charged as a legal adult wouldn't take place until January the 21st, 2004, being charged with assault in the second degree. At the time, he was 18, and this charge only classified as a misdemeanor. A pretty big portion of John's crimes tend to be some sort of assault on a single or even multiple individuals at once. And while I'm at it, I should also lay out what exactly counts as assault in the state of Maryland. According to the Maryland General Assembly, assault in the first degree constitutes as intentionally causing serious or physical injury to another through the means of firearms, so things like handguns, shotguns, rifles, or etc., or through strangulation, which obviously means applying pressure in one's neck or throat. Assault in the second degree constitutes causing any impairment of the physical condition, excluding minor injuries. This would normally be a misdemeanor, but in the instance of someone assaulting an officer, parole agent, or any first responders who are currently providing emergency services, they would be guilty of a felony. And this is automatically a felony for assault in the first degree as well. Looks like John couldn't wait any longer to catch his second charge, since roughly 3 months later, on April 29, 2004, he would be facing, although be it a minor offense, possession of marijuana. Something that should be noted, John up to this point never actually faced any time for any of these charges. There would be a summons issued and a summons served for the assault charge, which just means a notice to appear in court was created, and served means you received said notice, but no actual trial information after the fact. And as for the marijuana charge, he did receive a bond, but it was a release on recognizance, which basically grants you release from jail without paying bail through a written agreement, accepting you will indeed appear for all future court dates. And other than that, this also yielded nothing. However, this wouldn't be the case for his third time facing criminal offenses. His charges consisting of malicious destruction of property, littering / dumping illegal materials, 2 counts of assault in the first degree, and illegal possession of a handgun on one's person. They granted John no bail for this one, and while the filing of his charges and warrant for his arrest were done on June 11, 2005, due to his failure for not appearing in court, his actual arrest didn't take place until the 26th of September that same year. Eventually, he pled guilty come May 1st, 2006. With his sentence being set a few months later on the 11th of June for pleading guilty, John Baione would face a whopping 10 years, with one of his charges of first degree getting dropped to a second degree. Due to time he already served prior to the sentencing, he would get 43 days credit and be eligible for parole, which means he wouldn't have to face the full 10 years. Nonetheless, this would make him around 21 years of age. And you see, I don't know about you, but to me that seems pretty wild. At the young age of 21, you're already facing a case that could take away 10 years of your own life. That's just straight what the kids like to say, YN behaviors, or I guess YC in this case. But bear with me here, I'm gonna cover his next 2 cases somewhat together due to how close in proximity they both occurred from one another. With his first one, a domestic violence case taking place on the 23rd of January 2007, and the second one, a civil case over a tenant dispute, occurring only 3 days after the domestic violence case. It goes without saying, but John obviously never faced any prison time for either. Since these aren't criminal cases, he would however have a protective order granted against him. In case you were wondering, a protective order functions very much like a restraining order. The only difference is it's more used as protection for abused victims. Maryland counts abuse as the cause of serious bodily harm, acts that place a person in fear of imminent serious bodily harm, assault, rape, or sexual assault, false imprisonment, stalking, and revenge porn. Soon after granting the protective order, a petition for contempt / enforcement would be filed, implying that John might have violated the protective order in some way, but it would seem whoever filed the domestic violence case eventually withdraw the motion for contempt. Now for the tenant holding over case, this case is simply about how John, the renter in this situation, was staying at this home past his lease ending. Usually in these situations, 3 outcomes can happen. The first one is the renter can be sued for any money owed and damages they have caused, or money that is owed for all the time he was spent there post lease ending. The second thing that could happen is an eviction. The last is the lease gets renewed and a new contract is created. In John's case, he'd face eviction and courts fully granted the landlord to get rid of him through the use of law enforcement. To be honest with you all, this one isn't that bad at all for obvious reasons, but I'm not gonna lie, I did find it a bit amusing because the plaintiff who filed this case would be no other than John Baione's own mother. I guess she just had enough of old Johnny Boy's shenanigans. Now, most people at this point would try to turn their whole life around, but you see, not our boy John Kenneth Baione Jr. No, not him. He's too savage and too tough to be making better responsible decisions. And wouldn't you know it, he would catch another assault charge in the second degree precisely a month later on the 26th of February. He pled nolo contendere, meaning he took the sentence without admitting guilt, and his jail term, although 3 years, only needing to serve half of that, providing he stays out of trouble. On top of this, he'd have probation with the end date being on the 22nd of September 2011. He did manage to spend a pretty good portion of his time under supervision referral, meaning someone doing time outside of prison in the free world, but with constant monitoring by a probations officer. Speaking of officers, John would manage to catch another assault charge, believe it or not, in the second degree. Unlike his previous times, however, a detentions officer would have the misfortune of being the one assaulted. The crime must have not been too bad though, with him only receiving 3 years of unsupervised probation for it, with a potential 2-year jail sentence if he violated his probation in any way. He didn't serve his probation until the very end of that year though, and taking a look at it, his probation was completed without any violations. Oh, and he did reimburse the victim as part of his sentence. I think we can all agree that some of these charges up to this moment have been kind of rough in terms of how violent they are, but as far as I'm aware, they've been mostly done through physical means and nothing too potentially life-threatening. Well, except for the one instance. On the 10th of January of 2009, a call sent out towards the Calvert County Sheriffs reporting a party nearby on Ponds Woods Road in Huntington, Maryland. The callers reported the party was getting out of hand and requested officers to get down there to break it up. When the officers made it there, they would have found a then 23-year-old John Baione, the culprit of a shooting that would send the victim to a nearby hospital. The victim did eventually get released in good condition, but as for Baione, he chalked the whole thing up as a case of self-defense and even gave a complete rundown of the transpired events. John claimed the shot victim was actually running at him with a baton in hand, trying to strike him. The source for this report came from the Baione, a news website in southern Maryland, but the thing is, Baione wouldn't be the only news article to report on this, since there was multiple ones reporting the more or less same set of events. Some of the websites included were other local ones, but some were more established and renowned as well, like the Washington Post. Shit, if you think this was bad, wait until I tell you what our boy John was up to on the 4th of August around 1 a.m. Cops arrested Mr. Baione Jr. for reportedly smacking up not one, not two, but 3 individuals outside the Neptune's Bar and Grill in North Beach, Maryland. Officers located Baione on a nearby street after descriptions from witnesses were given, and his following charges listed: a single count of the first-degree assault and 3 separate counts of second-degree assault. Apparently, the initial victim, a 31-year-old man, has suffered multiple really bad contusions or bruises to the head and face. The injuries must have been pretty severe, as he was taken by the ambulance to the Calvert Memorial Hospital. As for the other 2 victims, a 23-year-old woman from Pennsylvania and a 27-year-old man from Chesapeake Beach, were treated for minor injuries on the scene. This crime resulted in A, the first 2 mugshots of John Kenneth Baione Jr., and B, a case filed that lines up unlike the previous article. There's actual 2 separate filings for this charge, one taking place the same day and the other a month later on September the 19th. For the first filing, it would state the same charges listed in the article, but also displays that he was granted bond with an initial amount of $75,000 down to $30,000 the day after. He did post said bond, releasing him for the time being, but as I mentioned before, this was just his first case filing, and the second filing, published on the 19th of September during that same year, this filing only presents 3 counts of assault in the second degree, and I can only assume that the first degree of assault charge was dropped as part of his plea deal. For this, he was facing a total 20 years, but over 14 of which were suspended, making it out to be around 5 years. Do remember that suspension doesn't mean permanently gone. He could still face those 20 years total if he violates his supervised probation, of which would last 5 years post-release. Johnny Boy, on his best behavior, fully completed his sentence with only a few probation violations, bars. These violations varied in time, with one in 2018 and the other in 2019, but nothing arose from this. From here on out, John Baione wouldn't face much more criminal cases, just a bunch of civil ones over contract disputes and tenant issues. A few of them actually being filed by him. No, wait. No way, I lied. There was one more arrest. Let's see, where is... here you go, I found it. According to Southern Maryland Newsnet, on Friday of October 12, 2018, Deputy Ridgell, an officer for Calvert County, was at Wawa, which is a gas station chain for all my non-Americans, in Prince Frederick, when suddenly he was approached by a citizen who promptly aired out his concerns about a dog inside of a truck. This truck, to no surprise, belonged to John Kenneth Baione Jr., who was 33 at the time. I guess John, in a fit of rage, would start to yell profanities at walking by citizens of the parking lot. Obviously, Baione would be placed under arrest and transported to the Calvert Detention Center, where he would later get charged with disorderly conduct. This charge must have been dropped since there seems to be no record of it in the Maryland case searches. And this entire situation gave us this radically neurodivergent, zesty sex icon of a pic. Say cheese! Taking a deep dive into the Reaper's online history, or at least as deep as I can, you will discover John has gotten numerous accounts banned, especially on TikTok, for albeit predictable reasons. One of the few remaining accounts, his Facebook, goes all the way back to 2009, with his oldest post dating the 30th of September 2014. Months would go by until his next post, that published March the 18th of 2015, and the reason for the nearly half a year gap in between was he would still be in prison up until that second post, at least based on this comment. Nothing much happens throughout his years posting on Facebook besides typical posts of his interests, family pictures, and memes. In case you couldn't tell, John is what we call in the industry a wigga, and you know, like the raps of Paul Wall, Riff Raff, and arguably the founding father of all wiggas, Vanilla Ice. This becomes more evident when he goes on to post on Instagram and TikTok, but it does show up from time to time on here too. Another fun fact about John is he likes to portray himself as an alpha or a sigma, but unironically, even having posts where he says as much, going beast mode as he puts it, I'm the leader and people bow down to me, or some lame ass shit like that. To be fair to John, this was like the mid or late 2010s. Maybe posts like this were tough back then or something. On March 14, 2016, a post would mark his 1 year being out of jail. John would take this opportunity to do some self-reflection and open up about his own struggles over addiction and his temper, later saying although he's been this way for a long time and has gotten better, he still has a long way before resolving these issues. Highlighting the ending of this post, or the number of other posts he made during this time, he states drama and negativity no longer plays a role in his life, wouldn't be anything but foreshadowing and ironic. When taking the fact that 10 months later, John would detail a bad interaction he had on a post. In summary, John describes seeing the same supposed homeless man begging for money while allegedly owning a very nice car and taking advantage of people in sympathy. The wording and anger in this post is arguably mild, but the main focus of this post shouldn't be the post itself, but more so the comments, and particularly this one, commenting how little information and context is being provided in this situation and how they shouldn't be jumping to conclusions about this man's circumstances. John does reply back claiming this guy's been at the same Wawas for every day for the last 3 months and would tell people that he had no place to stay, no family, no car, or anything. The initial commenter would reply back, of course, stating John left those details out and these new details drastically make things more clear. John would feel the need to reply and clarify that he didn't leave out any other information, as he did state that he was there for 3 months in the original post. And yes, while it is true that John did give a time frame for how long this was all transpiring for, he actually never mentions once how this guy supposedly made false claims of being homeless or without vehicle. It's pretty shameful to be begging for money, especially when you have a nice car, but that's vastly different for lying about your financial circumstances. Take advantage of people's goodwill for money. John, however, failed to recognize how missing details like that could change someone's view on the matter, and instead of acknowledging his mistakes, John doubles down and states there is nothing left out in the post. This, among other incidents, are merely precursors of what's yet to come. On a more positive note, John would take to Facebook on March 14, 2017 and post his second anniversary of being a freed man. There really wasn't too much that happened for the rest of this year, controversial wise, but jumping into 2018, on March the 14th, John would celebrate his third anniversary of being out of prison, and this time he'd give a bit more insight of what caused him to turn his life around and describe an altercation he had in prison.
So today's my 3-year mark. So I've been out of prison, jail free, haven't been arrested, none of that bullshit for 3 years, man. I got into an incident in the cell with somebody over some disrespectful things. Something happened. I came out on top. I had a talk. Ever since then, I had an epiphany. And ever since then, I realized that's not who I want to be. I always wanted to be a cop like my dad so I could protect people and help people. That's what I always wanted to be.
If you recall earlier in this video, I was hesitant about diving into his parents' lore, but as John said, his father is or was indeed a cop, and a sergeant at that, for the PGPD. That's a tongue twister. I don't know why that's such a tongue twister for me. Serving the community for 20 years, then retiring and serving again for another 15 years as a fire investigator before retiring once more in 2022. Unfortunately, Mr. Baione has passed away as of the 24th of May 23. Big ups, big prayers. And thinking about it now, this is pretty ironic, not only for the whole dad being a cop thing, but him even admitting he always wanted to be a cop his whole life, just like his old man. You would think someone in John's position, growing up with good parents while having a father who's a sergeant of the police department, would be a bit more cautious of breaking any laws or getting into trouble, but that clearly wasn't the case for John. And by the way, I'm not blaming his parents at all for the way he turned out. Sometimes you can do everything right at the end of the day and still be met with defeat. Maybe it wasn't John's upbringing or the people who he hung around with in his teen years or any other media he was consuming that caused him to be this way, but potentially just who he was born to be. The whole concept of nature versus nurture has always been a contested one, with plenty of research and articles supporting or opposing either position. Regardless on how you feel on the subject, the common consensus seems to be with enough dedication and self-improving, bad behaviors can more or less be curbed and kept under control. John up to this point has done a pretty good job at staying out of trouble and not giving into his temper, but for how long can he stave off his anger for? Halfway through 2018, John chose to open a Snapchat to entertain his audience on both platforms, and at that point, most of his viewers were his personal friends and family. Due to how Snapchat works, I can't show you what some of these videos and snaps consisted of, but I know he would call these more entertaining moments the quote-unquote John show, and at least one form of entertainment he did partake in was exposing people for being weird or just someone he was having arguments with. But I could gather a decent amount of these messages came from people who are strangers or people he barely interacted with. For example, this post on the 25th of June shows messages through the app Messenger of a woman by the name of Haley. She asks John for some money to buy some food. John replies back with confusion, asking who they are, confirming John has never interacted with this person before. He replies back offended by John's rudeness. John responds back highlighting how she didn't even introduce herself. She sarcastically says hi, and John understandably defends his initial question by stating how brazen and out of the blue her request was, considering they have never had a conversation before. She expresses her frustration and stops talking to him, and John, I'll admit, hilariously replies telling her how she needs to go to the soup kitchen if she wants free food, and how she's too ugly to receive free money. Very nice, very based. This will once again be a more common thing as the video progresses. Anyways, 5 days later, John would go live while driving, and in my opinion, tell some pretty revealing things that would not only make what would happen to him a few months down the line even funnier, but also give us a scope how severe John's anger and criminal behaviors truly were.
There's so many of you fucking assholes that talk so much shit about me and still do, especially when I first got out. I used to hear about it, all of it. Oh, he's gonna fuck up again. I know he is. I just know him. I know him. I know guys like him. You don't know shit.
As you can see, around halfway through the live, John loses it and starts laughing manically as he points at the camera. He then proceeds to broadly call out some people who may have doubted his ability to stay out of prison, both recently and when he first got out. Do keep in mind, John still hasn't yet made any of the clips that popularized him, meaning the people here he's addressing aren't just any random online troll or viewer, but most likely people who actually knew him in person. It really puts in perspective the amount of animosity John must have had in his heart if you got people who knew you off camera casting doubt of your claims of changing. He brings up these haters again towards the end of the live and basically stating that his haters are preying on his downfall, so to speak. Luckily for his haters and doubters, that moment was just around the corner. But before we get into that, sometime in early September, John calls out a woman who had the pleasure of meeting him before, albeit only once, and his reasoning for this call out was largely due to the spam messages he was receiving. Someone in the comments shares a screenshot of said woman's account with what appears to be a Facebook story calling out John Baione as one of the fakest people she knows. John goes on to copy and paste some messages she sent him. I obviously ain't reading all that because, well, it's already 30 plus minutes into this recording and it's really not that important. John further comments saying all he did was show this woman compassion over a situation she was going through, which then caused her to just start spamming and rambling, eventually into John blocking her. I guess she didn't take the block too well, since a day later John drops another post continuing the situation, captioning it with "Stop while you're ahead, please. Lol. For the love of Christ, let me be chill, mofo." Images of Roger from American Dad wearing a blonde wig attached, insinuating she looks like an alien wearing a wig. She responded back in the comments calling John a low-life little boy for blocking her and talking shit about her. She also mentions someone by the name of James trying to intimidate John. John replies to this thread with a gif with some guy presumably from a show with a shocked expression on his face, obviously sarcasm. She leaves another message basically restating her previous comment, but this time insulting John further by calling him a bisexual and telling him to go suck a dick. John does respond to this comment as well, up, but it's just more Roger in American Dad gifs or gifs. Is it gifs or gifs? Let me know in the comments how y'all pronounce it. I'm not too sure. I hear people pronounce it either way. Following year shows John only somewhat active with little to no activity by the end of July. The reason for that I will get into, but first let's see what John was up to prior to this cutoff point. Finding himself into trouble, John via Facebook creating an alert post for his missing trailer on the 22nd of March 2019. He was in Philly or Bumville, his words not mine, on a work trip, and sometime in the middle of the night 3 individuals would make their way with his trailer, all on camera. John firmly believes that one of his recent hires for the work trip must have tipped off these individuals. This next post, announcement, business endeavor is something else, man. John on the 22nd of April decided he wanted to sell dildos of his own penis for, you know, all the misses out there, obviously. Yeah, I don't want to spend too much time more on this one. It's pretty self-explanatory. Anyways, on our next post of interest, published on the 14th of May, is a call out to all the backstabbers who called his parole officer over his consumption of weed. He just got a slap on the wrist for this, metaphorically speaking. And John went on to post a photo of himself smoking the devil's lettuce. And all I have to say for this one is eat well, live well, ass blunt. You know what I mean? That blunt is so skimpy, bro, man. That 5 steps to weight loss ass blunt, bro. Nah, I'm just fucking with him, but that is a skinny ass blunt though. John uploads become less frequently during the month of July with 9 posts overall. His last post of that month is him letting everyone know that he could no longer use Messenger on that account due to him being locked out of it. So technically John's real last post is the 20th of August, but it wouldn't be a proper John Baione send off without some shit talking. And that is indeed what he did. His post aimed at a man named Dwayne would provide a screenshot of messages he had with Dwayne and a caption. Although much harsher than the previous ones, this call out would be the same old song and dance for John. Sure, while the post is very basic, this is at least publicly the first time John calls out a random online troll so directly, considering all his previous interactions were people who knew him, random online beggars, or offline people who pissed him off or did him wrong in some kind of way. This might be the first documentation of John sending private videos to said troll, something that would put him on the social media spotlight and subsequently his signature. John does give an explanation for his inactivity. His new Facebook account, John Baione, but with a Y and an O-W-N, implying that his old account got banned, the details of which he doesn't expand upon. Now, I'd like to take a detour and get into his other online accounts, well, whatever is left of them, considering John will lose 5 and probably more of his accounts based on his own recollection.
Well, I'm back on the block. This is my 5th account.
These accounts varied in platforms such as Instagram, TikTok, and Snapchat, and the latter of the 3 being a bit harder to explore. If you didn't know, Snapchat stories and messages get deleted after opening them or after a set amount of hours unless saved, meaning most of what I could have shown for his Snapchat is all gone, besides the very few saved stories. Said stories aren't nothing to write home about though, just him mostly driving around or with his dog, or him driving on with his dog, with his most popular saved story being of him saying he has previously uplifted some of his haters before. No one seems to mention it. I guess this one comment is kind of funny. John also has maybe or had 2 YouTube accounts as far as I'm aware of, with one of them being deleted and the other one only having 2 videos. Putting the link of the deleted channel in the Wayback Machine provided no results. 2 videos on the other channel, they're essentially the same, just one happens to be less cropped than the other. We've gotten that out of the way. Now let's break down, some would say, the golden era of the Maryland Reaper. Like, how exactly did we get gems like this?
Nigga, if you don't take your fat, wanna be washed up, watered down, fake Rick Ross looking at.
Or this.
Fucking punk ass black bitch. You must think that you must think that shit's sweet. You must think I'm one of them sucker white boys, you fucking goofy ass nigga.
Or the biggest of all bangers, his most recognized.
Hey bitch ass nigga, where you at then? Fuck my mouth, bitch nigga. I come and slap you in your fucking mouth and I'ma spit in your face after I knock you out. Now how about that? Funky ass nigga.
Fuck. Okay. Guys, I have to come clean. Everything I'm about to tell you is based on so much speculation. It damn near feels like a game of telephone. So please cut me some slack. I already had to work with some of the bullshit. Oh, my bad. Some of the clips and IG comments, all of which scattered everywhere. So if you like your timelines organized and dated properly, I'm sorry, but you're not finna get none of that here. Most of these succulent clips stemmed from one big internet war. On one side you have John Baione, and on the other a bunch of meme pages and trolls. The main and the leading culprits of this holy crusade, however, were 3 Instagram accounts who went by the usernames Dwap, or the second account Duvain Kane 2, and inmate underscore 38. Oh yeah, and Mark Zuckerberg would be brought up as well, so there's that. Searching up those usernames, you will find out only 2 out of the 3 accounts are still around. That of course being Dwap and inmate underscore 38. Unexpectedly, the Dwap account would lead to a dead end. The reason for that being, there's no post on the account in relation to John Baione, and after sending a DM to the user and having a back and forth, he explained to me that he obtained the username a while back from a TikTok, and since 2 people can't simultaneously share the same username on Instagram, whoever held the original Dwap user must have gotten their account banned or deactivated. So 2 dead ends, not looking so great. But luckily for us, inmate underscore 38 is also still around, and there is plenty of posts relating to John on here, 10 to be exact, half of which are just shit posts with no significance. Must have gotten this at a gay bar? What? Okay, just another typical insult calling him gay. I'm sure there's no video out there backing up this statement, right?
And I was a stripper at regular bars, gay bars, everywhere. And I was a stripper at regular bars, gay bars.
Well, I guess I owe Renee an apology for not believing her earlier. Listen, gay or not, John really knows how to get to the bag. Bro has done it all. Gay stripper, influencer, model, rapper, dildo seller, the leading sales rep for a CBD company. You name it and he's done it. He even has his own contracting business, appropriately titled Baione LLC. And may I add, some very splendid reviews to bat, like great business, managed properly by a pro, great communication and workmanship, highly recommend this business. Or best company ever, I would highly recommend it. And how about this one? John Baione, the owner, is a racist, misogynistic pedophile. I had experience with him fixing my house in the upper Marbolo area, and I see him in the room with my child bent over. I'm a single mom, so I was uncomfortable. I told him to leave before I called the cops. Also, he has records for assault, rape, and attempted murder. Would not recommend working with him. You think that this shitstorm wouldn't get any worse? After all, they even got to his business page already, right? Wrong. John, either due to his huge balls of steel or is even more likely chronic retardation, it'd be a good idea to still leave his fucking phone number on his page. In the most plot twisted set of events no one saw coming, John would absolutely get bombarded with phone calls. The types of calls varied, with some calls just asking him questions about this whole trolling campaign against him, some calling to shit talk him, and other called in as prank calls.
What's up, faggot?
You don't have carne asada burritos?
What you want?
What kind of place are you, man?
What? You want your mother to suck my dick? What?
Mi amigo gave me your number and say you are the best burritos in the Estados Unidos.
What? Your mother wants to suck my dick?
Do you not want to make a sale today?
Your mother wants to choke on my dick?
Look, I'm going to go into Google and give you 1 star.
Chilango, punto, chilango. I'll smack the shit out you.
You should just
Y'all niggas have anything better
apologize,
to do
man.
than to send prank phone calls. Y'all are
I
so
don't know who the
low.
hell you think you are.
I hope whoever has sent this to me to
Damn.
record.
You really got some nerve making little girls
I'm gonna
cry and
spit
shit.
on you like a llama, my nigga. I'm gonna spit on you like a llama.
Look, if I were you,
Like
I
a
would
llama.
just be ashamed of myself. Damn, dude.
The calls, along with videos being sent to John, seem to only motivate John to continue stoking the flame through means such as threatening to beat the shit out of them, death threats, and him even threatening to pull some of these trolls' IP addresses and find them. It even got so bad that he'd actually pull up to one of these said trolls' houses, allegedly. I say allegedly because although there is comments and even John's own statements confirming as much, there is no actual video proof of this occurring. Afterwards, any other possible way to further increase the intensity of the situation would finally get exhausted, and a once ahead endless battle would finally come to a close, is what I would say if this wasn't a video about John Baione. Instead, what I can only assume as a desperate power play to end the madness, John brilliantly decided to send a video to his detractors where he willingly gives out his own full home address to, I guess, get them to fight him or maybe to scare them. I'm not sure. I'm just as clueless as everyone else on what could possibly be the line of reasoning for it.
And I'll show you. I'll straight smoke you, bitch. I'll put you smack on a t-shirt, ass. Because here's how the obituary gonna read. He thought he was a tough guy, and then he just went to go fuck with somebody for no reason, and banged the shit out of him and smoked his brains out. Fuck your mother and your fucking kids, ass. I keep telling you where I'm at. Every time where I'm at, I tell you, get pussy ass internet where the fuck I'm at, and none of you suckers pull up, cause you a pussy, you a bitch. Your mother's a bitch. Your father's a bitch, cause he raised a fat ass sucker like you, pussy. Southside St. Pete, Florida. It. Now come and show me. Pull up and I'ma show you.
But yet again, in another unpredictable twist of fate no one saw coming, Trolls made calls for a bunch of pizzas to be delivered to his house.
Oh, you pussy ass niggas keep talking about you sending hitters, and y'all niggas send Domino's and DoorDash.
I'm starting to think he really is just clinically challenged. Like, what else did you expect to happen? Seriously. Any person with a following will do their best to keep all their private info away from the public. Meanwhile, John's just out here willy-nilly giving all his shit away. Bro really does want the smoke, but it always just backfires on him. I don't... Also, cannot express this enough, but when I say everyone, I mean everyone and anyone got called out, including founder of Facebook and King Lizard himself, Mark Zuckerberg.
They just tried to delete my account on IG saying that I'm not allowed to talk about Zuckerberg. Man, suck my dick, Zuckerberg, you faggot ass, clown ass chump. You a pussy, bitch. You a fucking dork in school. You was a fucking nerd. I don't give a fuck the money you make and how smart you are. You a pussy ass dork and you would never survive in a world full of wolves, bitch.
John Barnett had built up a community of sorts through all these clips of him, and in such settings, you're bound to build a reputation or some kind of nickname. This is pretty standard, and in John's case, it's no different. He'd obtain a lot of these nicknames and catchphrases through clips. Nicknames like Slip and Slide, or Beige.
Hey, I wish, because a lot of white people are scared of black people, but there's niggas like me, we beige.
And can't forget his most renowned, the Maryland Grim Reaper. His most recognized name is a bit different in the fact that it's a nickname with no particular clip attached to it and with no real pinpoint of origin either. However, using some previous knowledge and knowing the likely demographic of John, TikTok and Instagram accounts, the Maryland Grim Reaper nickname stems from a hip-hop reference / meme. Originally, the rapper Lil Reese held the nickname of the Chicago Grim Reaper, and from what I remember, Chicago drill rappers were quite popular during this period of time. Like a lot of rap trends, meme variations of the Chicago Grim Reaper would pop up. For example, the Chicago Grip Reaper maybe holds some nostalgia for a few of you out there. I'm almost certain the Maryland Reaper is another variation of the same meme, replacing Chicago with Maryland, as that is John's birth state. Years, months, days flown by, and as such, the flames of a once bright and heated feud dwindled with the steady pace of time. Analyzing this whole perpetual cycle of John getting trolled and John flinging shit back wasn't all a detriment, since for one, it provided plenty of entertainment for online ongoers, and two, this greatly benefited John in both earning him a much wider audience and opening new doors for John, like collabs. His biggest collab being with the YouTuber Damar X, better known as Bounty Hunter D. If you aren't familiar with Damar's content, view it as an amalgamation of different trashy reality TV shows on one channel, with an impressive 3.7 million subscribers and a smaller yet still impressive 348,000 followers on his Facebook page. Due to a foreseeable fallout, all the videos John once appeared on his YouTube channel are deleted or maybe privated. I'm not too sure. I just know that they're gone. That being mentioned, John only cameos on his Facebook with a few hidden clips viewable on TikTok. In short, John and Damar go on these repo jobs whilst trying to antagonize the owner of the vehicles, and to be frank, these clips sum up the entirety of Damar's repo videos. As for the fallout between the two, I think I'll just let John explain it.
Well, here's what happened. The show's fake. It was staged. I paid for the call, $500. Bam, boom, bing. I even have the video of the aftermath of us saying how good of a skit it was. I started working for him immediately that same day. He didn't save me from anything. I got my own company and do some of my own stuff. But he did cost me a bartending job because I would have made way more money bartending on the beach than I would have working with him. But he promised me a bunch of money, all this extra stuff. I brought him 1.8 million subs to his channel, which is almost a 200,000 increased revenue from his stuff. And he pretty much carried me, lied, and fired me in a sense, basically because I was sick. But I was going to walk away. I was starting to walk away from the show anyway because he's racist. I don't like people like that. And I don't like fake. And he's super fake. So our energies don't mesh.
Well, looks like I lied to y'all again, because apparently he does have another YouTube channel going by the username Headhunter J, the same nickname he went by in Damar's repo videos. Doing some digging on the channel reveals a more in-depth explanation, primarily through screenshots and messages he had with Damar. You guys can pause it if you like to read the messages, but in short, he gives in detail on why he hasn't replied back to any of Damar's recent messages over showing up to film. They do have a back and forth, however, it clearly seems mostly one-sided, almost giving a "Bae, talk to me, don't block me" type of vibe. And you can trust me on that, because it takes one to know one, and my boy John was going through it. The whole thing basically ends with Damar not believing in John's no-show explanation, and John very desperately trying to gain sympathy from him by stating he threw away a potential contract job to film with him, and that he won't have any money to pay for his rent. Damar, being fed up with the spam, tells John to quit blowing up his phone or else he's going to block him. Jesus, these messages really are giving me PTSD flashbacks of her. John actually does do a follow-up after the first TikTok, several actually. Giving my honest opinion here, it is likely John is lying, at least based on his original text screenshots conflicting with his TikTok response. On one hand, he says he wasn't getting paid, but the text made it sound like he was relying on a paycheck from him to pay off his rent. He really did not once paid you this entire time. Why would you just throw away a contract job over another video shoot with someone who hasn't up to this point paid you a single dime? It literally makes no sense whatsoever. So either John is lying here and he was getting paid a decent amount, hence why he would throw away a potential job offer for his contract business, or he made a stupendously dumb decision. To be honest, both are pretty believable. We are talking about John here after all. So most of these clips are really just him exposing Damar for being fake and scripting his videos. That last one really goes without saying though. Surely even the 80-year-old dinosaur bones using Facebook could have told you that. Despite the fallout, John was still sitting on a respectable following, at least according to him.
I've been stuck at this goofy 8,000 when I had, over 110,000 followers with like 1.3 million likes before I got like banned for good and got like X'd out.
Since I can't provide receipts of his numbers, I'll take his word for it. But like all good things, it too came to an end, getting banned several times. On his new account, he clarified the reason for his multitude of bans.
I'm really trying to go to whatever platform is different on the new supposed TikTok or whatever like that, because I can't be me. I'm funny as fuck. I really am, but I can't be me, do me, say anything how I want to feel or say, because every time it's just somebody, it's hate speech, it's something, it's always some bullshit.
Between the falling out with Damar and the relentless bans of his pages, this ultimately left John's social media following to stagnate and turning him into nothing more but a forgotten meme. Hold on, I just realized I am getting a little ahead of myself. We started this whole thing off with solely two people, Inmate and Duvane Kane. Arguably, this whole crusade, the endless calls, the beefs, the bans, the collabs would have never come into fruition if it wasn't for them DMing John. I've already shown you how they trolled him. I can even give you somewhat of a date on when they started to troll him, but what I can't seem to truly figure out and wrap my head around is why. On an old post of Inmate, deep in his comment section, he replied to a guy asking who was this beautiful yet strange looking fella. Inmate, in a giggly manner, states, person him and Duvane made famous. The user responds back in agreement, but the most important part of this conversation comes in at the end, where he states he's been trolling John since the month of August. And taking in the fact that this post upload date being the 20th of February 2021, this implies that the initial engagement between John and them must have started around August of 2020. Hate to break it to you, but part of the video might might be a huge letdown, since there's nothing on and off inmate's page that would provide a clear answer on why him and Duvane did what they did to John. Determined in my quest for answers, however, I decided to take it upon myself and reach out directly towards all the main people involved, including the man himself, John Baione. The results, as of me typing this, are very disappointing, starting with both Duvane's Instagram accounts, which are no longer active, with his used to be main account username pertaining to someone else now, and having no connections to this entire ordeal or anyone involved. Messaging all three of inmates' accounts left me with similar outcomes of no answers. For John, I figured to stick to the theme of DMing on Instagram and reached out to his 2 accounts. Despite my efforts, this calling was also left unanswered, leaving me with my own speculation as to why. And I get it, as boring of an answer or reason as this is, there probably was no reasoning to the initial trolling. Some guy bored out of their minds, and seeing John as an opportunity for entertainment, and John, being the person he is, taking the bait and engaging with them. Like I said, pretty boring explanation, but that tends to be the nature of life sometimes. You know, what can you do? It is what it is. The very few remaining accounts he has left shows a very similar John from years ago when he was still on his old Facebook account. Nothing wrong with this per se, but it may be worth pointing out when evaluating if John could ever be susceptible to any familiar online attacks and react in a similar fashion like he's done in the past. Bringing it back to a previous and undoubtedly the most important question in this entire video, can someone like John truly ever change his nature? John from the jump had a very troubled time in his youth and continued so into his adult years. With him finally being released after years in prison, he chose to move on a better path and change his old ways. He overall stuck to his promise, but that doesn't mean he wasn't close a few times. With him getting even arrested at one point, John undeniably seems to still struggle with his heated temper and staying away from negativity, even though he was very staunch early on about cutting off drama and negative people. My candid and unsatisfying conclusion boiling down to a simple, only time will tell if John can legitimately break from his old habits for good. I hope he does, however, and wish him the best of luck. With that being said, I hope y'all enjoy this video and y'all stay safe and stay black.